I never thought I'd be the girl to say this, but here I am, heart shattered, trust broken. It's funny, isn't it? How one moment can turn your entire world upside down. That moment for me? Finding those videos. God. Even thinking about it makes my stomach twist. I was at Laura's, my supposed best friend since forever, celebrating her brother's 22nd birthday. The house was buzzing with people, laughter echoing off the walls, drinks flowing like there was no tomorrow. And me? I was floating through it all, tipsy and carefree, until I wasn't. Laura had disappeared outside, mingling or whatever, and I decided it was selfie time. Her phone was lying around, and we always shared everything, so I didn't even hesitate. A few goofy shots later, I had this brilliant idea to send them to myself, for memories. That's when everything changed. Typing in my name, I paused. Ethan's name popped up just below mine. Why? Why would my boyfriend and my best friend be texting? Curiosity morphed into suspicion, morphed into action. I clicked on his name, my heart racing, and that's when I saw them. 4 videos, thumbnails glaring back at me with a story I wasn't prepared to read. The first video was enough to burn every memory of us to ashes. Ethan, blindfolded, and Laura, very much not, in a way that screamed betrayal. They were intimate, to put it mildly. Each video escalated, their actions a stark contrast to the love and trust I thought we shared. I felt like I was outside my body, watching someone else's life implode. The room spun, my heart pounded, and I had to get out. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. I left the party without a word to anyone, especially not Laura. Ethan's been calling, voicemails piling up with him crying, begging for a chance to explain. But what's there to explain? The videos spoke volumes, volumes of lies and deceit. And Laura. She's been radio silent. Guilt, maybe? Or just indifference? Hard to tell with a backstabber. Now, I'm here, sitting in my room, replaying that night over and over. The betrayal by the 2 people I trusted most has left me reeling, unsure of how to move forward or if I even want to confront them. Part of me wants to scream, to make them feel a fraction of this pain, but another part wonders if silence is the best revenge. What do you do when your world crumbles? When the 2 people you loved and trusted the most leave you questioning everything? I guess I'm about to find out. The night was supposed to be simple. Can you give Laura a ride home? I asked Ethan, my voice muffled by the phone and the sounds of the bustling cafe where I worked. It was just a favor, nothing more. Ethan, always the charmer, agreed without a second thought. Of course, babe, no problem at all, he assured me, his voice a smooth balm to my frazzled nerves. Little did I know, that ride would mark the beginning of the end. I was pulling an all-nighter at the cafe, the kind of shift that leaves you questioning your life choices. Meanwhile, Laura was out, living it up at a graduation party. She'd been my rock since we were kids, but that night, she became something else entirely. When I finally got a break, my phone lit up with a message from Ethan. Laura's home safe. Heading back to our place now. Relief washed over me, quickly followed by exhaustion. I trusted Ethan implicitly, and Laura was like the sister I never had. It never crossed my mind to doubt either of them. But then, things started to shift. Laura's texts became more frequent, her questions about Ethan more pointed. How's Ethan doing? He's such a sweetheart for giving me a ride. Her words, innocent on the surface, began to carry a weight that I couldn't shake off. And Ethan? He just laughed it off, his usual easygoing self, oblivious to the storm brewing on the horizon. The first seeds of doubt were planted the next time we all hung out together. Laura, who was always more jeans and a t-shirt than anything else, showed up in a dress that left little to the imagination. She clung to Ethan's every word, laughing a little too loudly at his jokes, her eyes lingering on him a little too long. It was subtle, but undeniable. Something had shifted in the dynamics of our trio, and I found myself on the outside looking in. I tried to brush it off, to convince myself that I was reading too much into it. After all, they were just being friendly, right? But the nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach wouldn't go away. It was like watching a car crash in slow motion. You know what's coming, but you're powerless to stop it. Ethan, I found myself asking one night, the words slipping out before I could think better of it, is everything okay with you and Laura? His response was immediate, a perfect blend of confusion and concern. Of course, babe. Why wouldn't it be? He pulled me close, his embrace meant to reassure, but the seeds of doubt had already taken root, growing with every passing day. As I lay in his arms that night, the silence between us spoke volumes. The affair might not have been out in the open yet, but the foundation of trust we'd built was starting to crumble. And with each passing moment, I felt myself slipping further away from the two people I loved most, caught in a web of betrayal that I never saw coming. The moment I thought about confronting them, my heart raced like it was trying to beat its way out of my chest. The idea alone felt like stepping off a cliff. Ethan and Lara, the two pillars of my world, suddenly seemed like strangers. Am I just being paranoid? I whispered to the empty room, half hoping for an answer that never came. Ethan's behavior didn't help. If anything, it only tangled my thoughts further. He was the same loving, attentive boyfriend he'd always been, maybe even more so. Flowers, just because. Surprise dinners, his warmth enveloping me in a way that almost made me forget the storm clouds gathering in my mind. Everything okay, Mia? His voice, laced with genuine concern, would pull me back from the edge every time I neared it. You've seemed a bit off lately. How could I tell him what was swirling in my head? That every laugh shared with Lara felt like a knife twisting in my back? And Lara, God, Lara. She crossed lines I didn't even know we had, her questions about Ethan veering from curious to invasive. How did Ethan react to that story you told him? He's got such a great laugh. Comments that once would have seemed innocuous now felt loaded, each one chipping away at my resolve. Their closeness was no longer a figment of my imagination. The way she sought him out, the energy between them, it was palpable, undeniable. Yet every time I steeled myself to confront them, to demand answers, I'd falter. Fear of shattering the fragile peace held me back, the peace that, deep down, I knew was already fractured. The tension became a constant companion, whispering doubts in my ear, painting my thoughts with suspicion. Mia, you're just overthinking things, I'd tell myself, trying to brush away the unease that clung to me like a second skin. But the harder I tried to ignore it, the louder it became. One evening, as I watched Ethan and Lara laughing together over something trivial, something inside me snapped. The laughter wasn't for me. I was on the outside looking in on a connection that had somehow shifted away from our trio, excluding me, isolating me. I needed to talk to someone, anyone who could offer perspective without the emotional turmoil clouding my judgment. My mom, always my sounding board, answered on the first ring. Honey, what's wrong? She asked, her voice a soothing balm. Pouring out my fears and observations felt like releasing a valve, the pressure within easing slightly as I spoke. Mia, listen to me, she said, her tone firm yet gentle. Trust your gut, but remember, accusations need solid ground. Observe, reflect, and then act. Don't let fear make decisions for you. Her words, wise as always, gave me pause. Was I ready to face the potential truth, or was the comfort of ignorance easier to bear? The answer, much like my heart at that moment, was fragmented. As days turned into weeks, the dance continued. Ethan's affection became my anchor, Lara's boldness the storm that threatened to pull me under. The confrontation loomed large, an inevitable crossroads I wasn't sure I had the strength to face. Yet, in the silence of the night, with only my thoughts for company, I realized something had to give. The truth, no matter how painful, was better than the limbo of doubt. I resolved to find my moment, to confront the storm head on. Little did I know, the eye of that storm was closer than I ever imagined. The air was thick with celebration, laughter weaving through the crowded backyard as I navigated my way through familiar faces, all gathered for Lara's brother's birthday bash. It was one of those nights where everything felt just right, or so I thought. Little did I know, my world was about to come crashing down in the most unexpected way. I remember feeling light, almost giddy, as I made my way inside Lara's house to escape the chill. The warmth of the interior hit me, a welcome embrace from the crisp night air. That's when I spotted Lara's phone, casually left on the kitchen counter among a clutter of party debris. A harmless idea struck me: why not take a few drunken selfies for laughs? We did it all the time, a silly tradition that never seemed to grow old. Flicking through the camera roll to find my latest series of goofy faces, I noticed the messaging app open in the background. An innocent glance turned into a curious peek, and that's when I saw Ethan's name, popping up in a way it had no right to. My heartbeat accelerated, a mix of confusion and a creeping dread taking hold as I tapped on his name, driven by a force I couldn't resist. The screen loaded, and suddenly, I wasn't in Lara's kitchen anymore. I was somewhere far off, a place where trust and love went to die. Videos. 4 of them, each a knife twisting deeper into my heart. My fingers trembled as I pressed play, each second unraveling the life I thought I knew. The first video was a blow I couldn't have prepared for. Ethan, my Ethan, with Lara in a way he was only supposed to be with me. Blindfolded, vulnerable, and completely unaware I would ever witness this. Their laughter, touches, the intimacy of their betrayal, it was all there, laid bare for my disbelieving eyes. I watched, frozen, as each video descended further into a nightmare. There they were, the two people I trusted most in the world, sharing moments meant for us, for me and Ethan. The realization hit me like a physical force, tears blurring my vision as the final video ended. The room spun around me, the sounds of the party outside a distant, mocking echo. I felt sick, heartbroken, and utterly betrayed. How? Why? Questions spiraled through my mind, but deep down, I knew the answers wouldn't change the raw, aching wound inside. I left the phone where it lay, a Pandora's box of shattered illusions. The urge to confront them, to scream and demand explanations, surged within me. Yet, my feet carried me away, out of Lara's house, away from the scene of my world's quiet collapse. The night air no longer felt crisp, it was cold, a chill that matched the sudden ice in my veins. As I walked, the images played on a loop in my mind, a cruel highlight reel of betrayal. Ethan's and Lara's laughter echoed in my ears, a soundtrack to the unraveling of my trust. I knew then, nothing would ever be the same. The unexpected twist in my story wasn't just a revelation. It was a turning point, a moment that redefined everything I thought I knew about love, friendship, and trust. The moment I stepped out of Lara's house, the cool night air felt like a slap to my face, a harsh contrast to the storm of emotions raging inside me. My phone buzzed incessantly, a relentless reminder of the reality I was desperately trying to escape. It was Ethan, of course. His name lit up my screen over and over, each call a stab of betrayal. I didn't need to hear his voice to know what he would say. The apologies, the explanations, the desperate pleas for understanding, they were all meaningless. How could words undo what I had seen? How could they stitch back together the trust that had been so carelessly ripped apart? I took a deep breath, the decision crystallizing in my mind with a cold, hard finality. Blocking them was almost cathartic. Each button pressed a step towards severing the ties that bound me to the pain. Ethan, Lara, they were parts of my life that I needed to cut out, malignant growths that had hidden their toxicity until now. The walk home was a blur, my thoughts a tangled mess of anger, disbelief, and an overwhelming sense of loss. By the time I reached my apartment, my phone was flooded with voicemails from Ethan. Part of me, a very small part, wanted to listen, to let his words wash over me in a wave of self-torture. But I resisted. There was nothing he could say that would change the images burned into my memory. Ethan again, I muttered to myself, deleting another voicemail unheard. His desperation was palpable, even through the digital distance I had put between us. Mia, please, just let me explain. It's not what it looks like. I swear to you, I didn't know she was filming. Please, babe, we need to talk about this. His words, even unheard, were like echoes in my mind. Could it be true? Did it even matter? The betrayal wasn't just in the act caught on camera. It was in the lies, the secrecy, and the fact that it happened at all. The apartment felt empty, colder somehow, as if the shadows held whispers of the love and trust that had once filled its corners. I sank onto the couch, the silence oppressive, the solitude a stark reminder of the gaping hole Ethan and Lara's actions had torn in my life. In that moment, the urge to confront Ethan, to scream and cry and make him understand the depth of the pain he had caused, was overwhelming. But what would it achieve? The damage was done, the trust shattered beyond repair. No, this was a wound that words could not heal. The night dragged on, each tick of the clock a reminder of the agonizing limbo I found myself in. To confront or to retreat? To seek answers or to accept the painful truth without them? These were questions I couldn't answer, not yet. For now, the only thing I could do was navigate the immediate aftermath of the betrayal, one agonizing step at a time. As dawn crept through the curtains, casting a soft light on the remnants of a life I thought I knew, I realized that this was just the beginning. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with pain and the daunting task of rebuilding myself from the ashes of my shattered trust. But it was a road I would have to walk, one way or another. The second the idea took root, it was like a wildfire in my veins, consuming the remnants of the hurt and betrayal with a fierce, unyielding intensity. I wasn't going to let them get away with it, not without facing the consequences of their actions. Direct confrontation? No. That would be too easy, too quick. They deserved more. They deserved to feel a fraction of the pain they'd inflicted on me. I spent the night plotting, my mind racing with possibilities until it clicked, the perfect form of revenge. Exposing them, letting everyone see them for who they really were, felt like the only way to strip them of the facade they'd so carefully constructed. The videos were damning evidence, impossible to deny or explain away. I worked methodically, my actions fueled by a cold, detached resolve. Creating anonymous email accounts felt like donning a mask, a necessary shield to hide behind as I prepared to unleash the storm. The videos, once a source of unimaginable pain, were now my weapons, and I wielded them with a precision that surprised even myself. The emails were crafted with care, each word a calculated strike meant to maximize the impact. To Ethan's family, to Lara's, to our friends who'd unknowingly been complicit in their secret, no one was spared. The send button was pressed not once, but several times, each click a step towards my liberation from the agony they'd caused. I imagined the fallout, the shock and horror that would ripple through our circle as the truth came to light. There would be no place for them to hide, no shadows deep enough to conceal the depth of their betrayal. Ethan and Lara, exposed for all to see, their perfect images shattered beyond repair. As the reality of what I'd done began to sink in, a twisted satisfaction took hold. It wasn't joy, far from it, but it was a start, a small flicker of power in the vast darkness they'd left me in. I waited, the silence of the early hours a stark contrast to the chaos I knew was unfolding in the digital realm. My phone remained silent, a testament to the anonymity of my revenge. Yet, I could almost hear the whispers, the shocked gasps, and the inevitable fallout. Ethan and Lara, once inseparable, would now be united in disgrace, their betrayal laid bare for all to see. This wasn't forgiveness, nor was it a path to healing. But in that moment, it was enough. Enough to give me a sense of control, a brief respite from the crushing weight of my shattered trust. As dawn broke, casting a soft light on the remnants of my old life, I knew that nothing would ever be the same. But maybe, just maybe, I could start to rebuild, piece by fragile piece, in the aftermath of the storm I'd unleashed. The silence of the morning after was deafening, each tick of the clock a heavy, echoing reminder of the storm I had unleashed. The night before, my fingers had danced across my phone with a single-minded purpose, sending those videos into the digital ether. It was a calculated move, cold and precise, aimed at exposing the betrayal that had torn my world apart. Now, as dawn broke, the reality of what I had done began to settle in, heavy and inescapable. My phone buzzed relentlessly, a constant barrage of messages and notifications. The digital world was ablaze with the scandal I had ignited. Ethan and Lara, once pillars of my life, were now the epicenter of a social earthquake, their reputations crumbling under the weight of their actions. I had envisioned this moment, played it over in my mind as a scene of triumphant justice. But as I scrolled through the messages, the expected surge of satisfaction eluded me. Instead, a hollow emptiness gnawed at my insides, a realization that no amount of revenge could undo the pain or fill the void left by their betrayal. The opportunity for confrontation came unexpectedly, at a gathering of mutual friends. The room was thick with tension, whispers darting through the air like arrows, each glance heavy with unspoken words. Ethan and Lara stood together, isolated, their eyes searching the room until they found mine. The moment was charged, a crackling anticipation of the inevitable clash. Ethan stepped forward, his face a mask of regret. "Mia, please, can we talk?" His voice was low, tinged with a desperation that might have once moved me. Lara stood by his side, her eyes downcast, a silent plea hanging between us. The words I had rehearsed for so long suddenly felt hollow. "There's nothing left to say," I responded, my voice steady but devoid of warmth. "You both made your choices, and now you have to live with them." The finality in my tone left no room for arguments or excuses. Turning my back on them, I walked away, leaving their apologies unacknowledged. It was a moment of closure, but not the kind I had imagined. There was no sense of victory, no triumphant exit. Just a deep, aching sadness for what had been lost. In the days that followed, the fallout from the public exposure was impossible to ignore. Ethan's friendships deteriorated, his social circle shrinking as the reality of his actions set in. Lara faced a similar fate, her once vibrant presence now a shadow, tainted by the choices she had made. As I watched from a distance, the consequences of my revenge unfolding, a bitter truth settled in my heart. The destruction of their social lives, the isolation they faced, it didn't bring me peace. Instead, it served as a constant reminder of the betrayal, a wound that refused to heal. In the quiet moments, when the noise of the world faded into the background, I was forced to confront the scars that the betrayal had left on my soul. Trust, once given so freely, now felt like a luxury I could no longer afford. The walls I had built around my heart were higher, stronger, a fortress to protect me from the pain of betrayal. The journey from love to betrayal, from betrayal to revenge, had brought me to this place, a place of reflection, where the cost of my actions lay bare before me. Despite the successful revenge, satisfaction remained an elusive shadow, a reminder that some wounds run too deep to be healed by retribution alone. In the end, the downfall of Ethan and Lara was not a story of victory. It was a tale of loss, a cautionary reminder of the fragility of trust and the price of vengeance. As I moved forward, the lessons of this chapter etched deep in my heart. I knew the road to healing would be long and uncertain. But it was a road I was ready to walk, one step at a time, in search of a peace that revenge could never bring. The morning light crept through the curtains, casting a soft glow across the room, illuminating a new chapter in my life. The past few months had been a whirlwind of emotions, a tumultuous journey through betrayal, pain, and ultimately, growth. As I sat at my desk, surrounded by textbooks and notes, I couldn't help but reflect on how far I'd come. My studies and part-time job had become my sanctuary, a place where I could lose myself in routine and responsibility, away from the chaos that had once consumed my life. Each day was a step forward, a testament to my resilience. I had learned to guard my heart, to see the red flags I had once so naively ignored. It was a cautious dance, one where I was constantly aware of the shadows of my past. Ethan's attempts to reach out had been a steady background noise, a reminder of the life I had left behind. His messages, filled with regret and pleas for forgiveness, went unanswered. It wasn't out of spite, but rather a necessary step towards healing. I had moved on, leaving him to grapple with the consequences of his actions. It was a chapter closed, a lesson learned. Lara's fate was a mirror to the consequences of betrayal. The vibrant, carefree friend I once knew had become a shadow of her former self, isolated by the very actions she thought she could hide. The backlash was swift, a social exile that left her grappling with guilt and loneliness. It pained me to see her fall so far, but it was a path she had chosen, a stark reminder of the fragile nature of trust. Despite the scars, the pain had carved a path to new beginnings. My world, once so narrowly focused on Ethan and Lara, had gradually expanded, welcoming new faces, new friendships. It was a cautious process, each new connection forged with a wisdom born from betrayal. Trust was no longer given freely, it was earned, a precious commodity that I guarded with vigilance. The final lesson, the silver lining in the stormy clouds of my past, was a profound understanding of my worth. Betrayal, while a bitter pill to swallow, had taught me the value of self-respect, the importance of setting boundaries, and the necessity of walking away from those who no longer served my best interests. It was a painful journey, but one that had ultimately led me to a place of strength and empowerment. As I turned my attention back to my studies, the noise of the world outside fading into a distant hum, I realized that the betrayal, though a defining moment, was no longer the anchor it had once been. It was a part of my story, but not the entirety of it. I had emerged from the darkness, not unscathed, but stronger, wiser, and more resilient. The road ahead was uncertain, filled with its own challenges and triumphs, but I faced it with a newfound confidence. The lessons of the past, while hard-earned, had equipped me with the tools to navigate the complexities of life with grace and determination. Betrayal had broken me, but in its wake, I had discovered an unshakable sense of self, a compass by which to steer my future. And so, with a deep breath, I embraced the day, ready for whatever lay ahead, secure in the knowledge that I was no longer the person I had once been. I was stronger, wiser, and infinitely more capable of facing the world on my own terms. The final lesson had been learned, and with it, a new chapter had